Hi guys, today I released a new movie called The Call on my main channel. And The Call is the most expected title to a sequel to my movie last year, The Text, that I could have come up with. But yeah, it's another movie shot during the Oscars. That's that 3-hour magical window to try to shoot a feature that I do every year, and edited in a week. And I did it all in one take. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you everyone who participated again this year. I compiled the playlist. I'll link it below. Once again, we have over 100 movies that were shot during the Oscars. I saw some cool animations. I saw a lot of returning names. I'm starting to see people are doing this every year as a tradition. And it's so cool because I'm seeing those people get so ambitious with it and change their style up and do this and that. And that's just me assembling the playlist, so I'm not even giving these my full attention as I wish I could. I'll reiterate, I wish I could watch every single one of these movies, but the fact that there's 100 and they're all nearing an hour means 100 hours, which is a damn part-time job. But everyone I do watch, I always love, and I think it is just such a breeding ground for creativity, lighting a spark. Such a fun fuck it attitude in the face of the Oscars expense and pageantry and virtue signaling and bullshit that happens there. I think it's such a fun alternative to this big expensive world of Hollywood filmmaking where everyone is paying to get their films awarded and everyone's paying for the nicest clothes and the most expensive event, and meanwhile they're talking about all the issues in the world as if they couldn't have helped with the money they spent instead to throw their little party. I digress. Everyone made beautiful work. Just skimming through it makes me so excited, and thank you for participating, and it's all linked below. But my movie this year is called The Call, and it's my first ever sequel to a feature film. I'm not unfamiliar with sequels. I've definitely, in my animated work, I've built a sort of storyline and franchise there. And with Caleb Johnston, he's done a ton of videos that all sort of link together and feed off of one another. But it's my first feature-length sequel. And before I get into talking about The Call, I want to share a stupid thought that it's a belief I hold enough to share it, but I don't know how much I would go 1v1 in the debate paint to defend it. But I firmly hold the belief that any movie ever can have a good sequel. And that is not to say a better sequel. I think most of them wouldn't be better, but I think you could make an interesting, and to me, interesting is good, sequel to just about any movie. And it comes down to how we see sequels these days, because I think sequels have been so tarnished because of the commodification of art, and that everything we're being sold is being sold to us as a product, and they're being focus tested for maximum audience appeal and not stepping on anyone's toes. Because you see what happens when a sequel steps on people's toes and tries something interesting, like The Last of Us Part 2, which I hold to be one of the best sequels I've ever seen in any medium, because it plays with your expectations so much, and because it gave so little of a damn about the audience's preconceived notions and feelings of what a sequel should be, and instead it told the story that should be told, needed to be told, and just elevated the theme so much of the original and added to them. And I could go on forever. This is a movie channel. I'll get off video games. But Red Dead 2, also a fantastic sequel, which is actually a prequel. But what Red Dead 2 does well is it has all these beautiful expectations from knowing what comes after, and then it sort of uses all that to defy your expectations, because you're like, oh, is this character gonna die? I don't remember them from Red Dead. And okay, enough video games. Anyways, I think expectations is what a sequel does best, because any other movie, if it's just a standalone movie, you're going in with no expectations, save for the trailer, the poster, marketing stuff. But you're going in with a base level of, this is a brand new world, brand new characters. Maybe if it's set in the real world, you have some preconceived notions. Maybe if it's about a real person. But ultimately, first movie, what is that even called? The start of a franchise, or not even a franchise, just a lone movie, is a base level of I don't know what to expect other than all my preconceived ideas of what a film is and what this genre is, etc. This filmmaker's work. Of course you have expectations, but you get what I'm saying. And what a sequel has that is so unique and beautiful is expectations. Direct, specific expectations from that same world, from those same characters. And that gives you a superpower as a filmmaker to look at those expectations and say, how do I want to meet them? How do I want to defy them? And how do I want to zig where others would zag, and create a sequel that's interesting rather than just like fulfilling on a basic popcorn kind of level. And that's what I had the most fun with making The Call, because I think the text is a very like simple film. It's 48 minutes. It comes in, comes out. It's about this awkward text. There's this story about this AI app and stuff that it sort of weaves throughout, but ultimately it's very focused. And the inclination with the sequel is to go bigger, do the same thing but bigger. And in some ways, that's essentially exactly what I did. There's a bigger cast, added a bunch of new characters. I say a bunch, but 3. Devin played Marissa. My friend Colin played Max. And my friend Drew played Hedgehog. Marissa and Max were 2 people that were hinted at in the first movie. And, you know, we never made that movie expecting to make a sequel. So it was just fun to rewatch that first movie with a sequel in mind. And it's like, oh, Trent has a girlfriend. We haven't seen her. Let's bring her into this. Oh, Ben has a business partner. His name's Max. He's on the phone at one point. He exists. Let's bring him into that. See that world grow. Hedgehog, which is, we were actually sitting around. I wanted my friend Drew, who is hilarious. He flew out to be in this movie, and he makes the best music. I love his music. But Drew flew out to be in this movie, and I just wanted him to play a louder than life. I always say that, larger than life character, because everyone in the first movie is so tense and you know, they're so passive aggressive, and it's funny to just introduce a bull in the china shop into that equation. Just an aggressive person who's not walking on eggshells, doesn't give a damn, you know, what people think about him, because everyone in the first movie is so self-conscious until Francesca comes in and finally eases that tension. And but Drew, you know, starting with these characters like Marissa is so confident and self-assured in the face of Trent, who's so self-conscious. And then Drew comes in, and he's so he's such a force of nature, and he's so funny. He every time I had to watch this through a bunch of times to polish it up, color grade it, make the audio nice. And while I was doing that, I just laughed out loud so many times at his deliveries and his lines. But it was fun to introduce new characters, which is a way that a sequel can get bigger and make the world feel bigger and more explored. And but ultimately, the first film was intensely focused. It was a movie about an awkward text and the tension and awkwardness surrounding, you know, people finding out about it. And this movie is a lot less focused. I think stepping away from it, I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't really, it's called The Call, and if you watch it, I won't spoil it, you'll find out why. But it's not centered around the call the same way the text is. So that's a fun way to play with expectations. You think, oh, there's going to be an awkward call, and then the whole movie is centered around dissecting it. But no, I think it's almost funny that the call takes a backseat. The title takes a backseat to all these other problems and little seeds we planted from the first film, like Calvin's character Jacob getting it's his birthday again, because the first film was set after his birthday. This is set on his birthday. He's 31. He doesn't know what to do with his life, and that's like a great seed of a character to grow. And we barely explored it in the first one. We just hinted at it, so it was fun to really let that take center stage in moments in this one. And Ben's app, you know, his god-awful AI dating app that he pitches and shows in the first movie, you know, it was fun to like play with this like hypothetical where maybe something came of that. And I'm talking vaguely so I don't ruin the experience. But and like lastly, Trent. There were some like comments and observations on the first movie that is like, Trent is kind of the only normal guy in that first movie. He's just so quiet and assured of himself, which I think worked as an anchor. But it's funny because he's such kind of a blank slate character in that movie. He doesn't really have his own thing other than being wife guy. He has his girlfriend who he loves, and I think it was so fun to take that and be like, make that his character's problem, because in this movie he's so self-conscious about not being a character, not being funny. And I'm like, oh, that is true, so let's add that to him. Like the critiques of the first movie, not even critiques, just observations maybe of the first movie, let that be like the character's flaw, and then retroactively it sort of like will work into the first movie in a funny way. And yeah, it's just so fun. Everyone did such a good job. I love these one takes. I think we did such a better job this time with just non-stop action. It's not action, but action. In the first movie is a really slow start. Dax wakes up to this music and he's walking through the house slowly, and it's like 3 minutes of just meandering. And there's a lot of little pauses throughout the movie too where we just follow a character. But in this one, it's shorter. It's 8 minutes shorter. We hit 40 right on the dot, thankfully, which is what I and the Academy consider to be a feature. That's why I do it that length. But it just happened to work out that we hit 40 on the dot with credits. And so like, yeah, this movie was a lot more action-packed. I think the blocking is nonstop. Like, this doesn't have a slow start. It's like, we know these characters. Let's get right into it, get into a funny scene. And just, it doesn't stop. It's wall-to-wall dialogue and character, and we're making sure to, like, each scene, what is each character feeling? What can we pull from that? And to really, there's so few long-take movies, I'm not even sure if giving advice on it is worthwhile. But the best advice I could give if you're trying to choreograph a oneer, and especially like a really long oneer, is never have the camera motion unmotivated. The second your camera drifts like a ghost, like a no-clip Minecraft creative mode, the second it just kind of goes off on its own, it feels like you lazed out on the long take. And that's what we were blocking the whole movie, because we make the story chronologically, and we're like, okay, what we want to get here, what takes us there? We need to write a character doing something to get us there. Something that makes sense, something that progresses the story. So it was really fun to piece that together. And we had a lot less time this year. We had 1 day less at the B&B I rented. And with one less day, we really just kind of locked in and focused, because I think we were kind of just kicking back the first year a bit. So we locked in, focused, probably got about like 10, 12 hours of planning for the movie. And then once the Oscars started at 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., we started shooting. And once again, the third take was the best. Because we had less time, the first and second this time were definitely like rehearsals still. There was a lot of little hiccups, things we were still figuring out. But we nailed it on the third. And we actually went ahead and did a fourth. We went through the whole movie one more time, because we're like, we're here. I'm paying for this Airbnb. Let's just do another one. The Oscars are almost done, or they were over at that point maybe. I'm like, let's just do another one in case we get a magic take. But the third one that we shot during the Oscars was officially the best one. So once again, I think that's the case for so many one-take movies, which is funny. I think Victoria, Russian Ark, what's the one, Boiling Point, and The Text, all were shot in one take and all used their third take. And I don't know, 3 is the magic number, I guess, when it comes to this. And maybe it's just enough that you shake off all the roughness and you nail it, but it's not like too many that you're exacting it and it becomes robotic and expected. And there's fun little like puzzles. I forgot that last year I had to use my friend Kev's lens, because my wide lens has a clicking aperture. It just goes in notches, so it's very distracting when you change the exposure. But this one has a smooth one. So little things like that you got to figure out. And the battery pack, I bought a huge battery pack for my camera last year to make it live for 3 hours. that's a fun little thing to figure out. You know, you're like, how are we going to make this work? And I suggest a wide lens. I love shaky handheld. One of my biggest pet peeves as a filmmaker, and I know a lot of people will disagree, is Steadicam. I don't like the look of Steadicam. This is not to say always, but just like, I definitely don't like the vertical action on Steadicam. I don't like how smoothly it goes up. It looks so robotic. And then even just like normal Steadicam, it's just too smooth. I'd much rather shaky with a little life to it than like super smooth like a music video. And I think it matches. There's different uses, you know. It works for certain things, but for me, I think the awkwardness of these movies works really well with that organic feeling camera. And a wide lens is a great answer for that, because the wider your lens, the less the shakes are going to register. You know, if you're trying to shoot your whole thing on a 35 or even like a longer lens, every little shake's going to be like so intense. So the wider you get, the better. Fisheye, do a one take on a fisheye. But essentially, I want to get back to the sequel talk a little, because I think people have this conception that a sequel doesn't need to exist and it's a bad thing. And I think a great example of that is the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which was, what are they, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and fucking whatever the last one was. But I often hear it quoted that like their main problem with those movies is they didn't plan them. Like, they didn't plan a satisfying arc for the 3 movies. And I agree that they didn't plan them and that they got worse as they went along. But I also feel like that's a misconception of what went wrong. It's less so that they didn't plan them and more so that they didn't grow the seeds they planted. Each movie had interesting things they could have followed up on, and yet they did not pull back from any of them. I think, like, you look at Star Wars, the original trilogy, that was not like planned to be a trilogy until the first one was such a big success, and then they found a way to extend and make that story interesting. You know, they made the twist up after the fact. You know, I think like the idea that like a sequel has to be built into the original is kind of false, because I think what's cool about a sequel is it's like life. It's like any character, any person, anything that you look at, you're like, okay, their life is going to continue beyond this movie, so let's just live that life in my head and see where they wind up and see what chapter of that could be compelling or interesting to capture. And I think that's a fun thought experiment. It's like, the characters in this movie continue, so a sequel could be inevitable, because it's not like everyone got killed with a bomb. And if your movie is about everyone getting killed with a bomb, maybe you make your sequel about their souls in the afterlife, and maybe that's a compelling or weird angle to take on it, you know. But I think there's tons of creative thinking that could go into a sequel that is so different than any other like standalone movie you can make, because it's just so fun. It's fun to like toy with that thought that like the life continues. Like, the idea that your sequels are doomed is like saying you peaked in high school. You know, it's like saying like your life got boring and stopped being worth remembering and capturing. It's like, no, your life will continue and have chapters that could be told as an excellent story, and so would any character in any movie ever. Life continue, you know. It's just, you gotta think on it, and maybe it'd be a fun like experiment to hypothesize sequels to movies and try to find the good ones, because there's an infinite number of options, and that's cool. But I had a lot of fun making this movie. I think it's a really like rock solid sequel that from a technical and a storytelling standpoint just has a lot more like solid ground and stuff going for it, but I still think it's also like a good continuation. So best of both worlds. I hope you enjoy it. I hope if you shot a movie, you had a lot of fun. It is such a fun little time constraint. Yeah, I love you guys. I love movies. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.